Defense Minister Anita Anand says Canada will invest $4.9 billion over the next 6 years to modernize North America's aging defensive systems. Minister Anand says the funding is the first of an estimated $40 billion that will be spent over the next 20 years. The money will upgrade the joint U.S. Canadian early warning system known as NORAD and purchase other military assets to protect the continent. The announcement was made Monday morning, and it comes amid numerous warnings from the U.S. and Canadian military officials and experts that NORAD is badly showing its age. Well, with us now to discuss the state of NORAD and what upgrades may be necessary is Mr. Richard Shimooka, defense expert and senior fellow at the Macdonald-Laurier Institute. Sir, welcome back to Forum Daily.
Thanks for having me.
Now, firstly, for those who may not be familiar, what exactly is NORAD?
So NORAD is a unique construct. It's actually a binational command where you have Canadian and American forces basically operating at the same desk together, collectively, jointly. And they have units, both Canadian and American, that are tasked for defending the North American continent, more aimed towards the north, but there are some assets that kind of look south and to the east and the west.
And we mentioned experts are warning that the system is aging. So what exactly do they mean by that? And what is the state of North America's defensive systems currently?
So the last major upgrade to NORAD occurred in the late 80s and early 90s between the Reagan administration and Brian Mulroney, as was the prime minister at the time. This was a huge upgrade to the radar sites that they're basically all in the north of Canada and Alaska, and they're trained towards any sort of Russian, or at that time it was Soviet, but now Russian sort of missiles and aircraft that might be approaching our borders from that direction. What we've had in the past 10, 15 years is there's been new technologies that have been developed by the Russians and the Chinese and some of the sort of smaller rogue actors like North Korea, which are hypersonics, which are basically missiles or glide vehicles, as they're known, that operate just at the sort of boundary of space and atmosphere, and they're able to sort of bounce around and are very difficult to detect and sort of attack or sort of prosecute with current systems. So these new technologies require an update to our existing systems. A lot of the systems that we purchased in the late 80s and early 90s are sort of reaching the end of their sort of useful life, and they do need replacement just as a general rule. So that's basically the aim. That's part of the primary sort of considerations that are going forward right now on what we call as NORAD modernization.
So what sort of investments and upgrades has the Canadian government announced for this system?
So one of the biggest ones, or one of the most critical ones, is a set of new type of radar called over-the-horizon radar systems. Now, OTH, the systems aren't necessarily new, but technology, sort of large data computing systems and new radar systems are able to make this a much more effective kind of approach to detecting potential threats. And what they do, they kind of use the ionosphere and sort of very high levels of at very high altitudes, different parts of the Earth's kind of atmosphere to bounce radar waves back across the horizon. And Canada is going to try to invest into a new type of system, or a new over-the-horizon radar system that's going to be developed and deployed in Canada in order to cover huge swaths of the northern reaches of the country, or northern reaches of our country and the United States, in order to protect our northern approaches.
And what about the United States? What sort of role have they played in updating our defensive systems? About a minute left, sir.
They're actually the more important part of it. They bankroll the larger proportion of NORAD modernization. Canada's contributions tends around 40%, somewhere around 45, 35%, somewhere in there. So the United States is absolutely essential for us, and they actually provide more of the largest proportion of aircraft that defend our north and other assets and capabilities.
All right, Mr. Shimooka, a quick 45 seconds left here, but what are you watching for next after this announcement?
Well, the development of these systems, specifically the over-the-horizon systems, these are technologies that are really early in their sort of development, and they could be extremely costly. we don't know what are the risks and the sort of the issues with them. So I'm kind of watching how they're going to approach this issue, because this will be something that we've never really tried before, and how it goes is anybody's guess at this point in time.
Lots to keep our eyes on. Mr. Richard Shimooka from MLI, thank you again for joining us today on Forum Daily.
Thanks for having me.
Stay with us. Up next, we've got more news from around the world as Russia continues its assault in eastern Ukraine and deadly floods wash over India and Bangladesh. These stories and more coming up next.